615 Sessions podcast. We got a couple of Johns in the house. We got Jon Glennon of SI and Jon Burton of News Channel 5 Sports Department. Boys, I appreciate you spending some time. JB, I know you're excited to get back to Pittsburgh. I know this is a big one for you.
Yeah, it really is. You know, I spent a good amount of years in Pittsburgh, 11 and a half. I covered a lot of Steeler games. And for me personally, this is probably going to be the last time that I get to see Ben Roethlisberger play in person. You know, I was there in Pittsburgh when he got drafted in 2004. And, you know, you got to remember the wage scale for rookies was a lot different back then. Didn't have that wage scale. So it took a while for Ben to get signed and in camp once he got drafted. And so the day he did report to camp, I got the first live interview with him from my old station and built a pretty good relationship with him over the years, and, you know, covered a ton of his games and watched him win the Super Bowl in Detroit, Super Bowl 40, and, you know, interviewed him a bunch. So, and obviously I got a lot of friends back there. So it's going to be a fun weekend.
Glennon, you're also an old person. What were you doing in 2004?
I can't even remember back then, young man, but I was going to say an interesting question for Jon Burton might be, will he be doing any wrestling in his return to Pittsburgh this weekend? I believe that was where it all began for you, or is that inaccurate there?
No, that is accurate, Johnny. That's where I took my first bumps. Put it this way, I'm not booked on any cards for indie wrestling in the Pittsburgh area for the weekend, but you never know. I could do a run-in. You never say never in this business, so be on the lookout.
There's always an availability for a run-in with Jon Burton's gun show. Like, I feel like that's got to be that can make a card anywhere. They got YouTubers, they got people like me, dumb internet people fighting in giant billion-dollar matches. JB, you got this one covered. But we're going to talk about a different kind of a knife fight. We're going to talk about the Titans and the Steelers at Heinz Field on Sunday. Johnny, we're looking at this right now. We don't know, as we're taping this podcast on Friday afternoon, whether Bud Dupree is going to play, but he did put together 3 straight days at practice. If we're to use the Julio Jones and everybody else's return to play sample size, 3 days of practice is a pretty good indicator that they will be comfortable bringing him up, and things look like they're trending towards him being able to play against the Steelers on Sunday.
Yeah, and certainly I think that'll be a help. You know, I don't think we're going to see Bud Dupree of last year or previous years. You know, obviously the injury took its toll this season, but, you know, I think it's kind of an interesting comparison a little bit. You know, when we talked about Julio Jones and the offense this week, we heard a lot of coaches and players say, even when Julio Jones isn't at 100%, he still affects the game because the defenses still have to respect him, you know, still have to pay attention to him more than usual. And I think that's really kind of similar to what we'll see in Bud Dupree too. Is he at 100%? No. You know, is he racking up the kind of numbers that Bud Dupree, you know, did in previous years? No. But still, he's a force that has to be reckoned with, and his presence there helps out the other guys too. So, you know, this defense was putting up some great numbers in terms of sacks when Bud Dupree was on the field, even though Bud wasn't necessarily the one getting the sack. So certainly a welcome return there.
Yeah, it's been a big part of it was a big part of the reason why they strung together 6 straight games with that pass rush that they have. And Danico Autry, Jeff Simmons, Harold Landry looked like a little bit of rest got them some fresh legs. They were teeing off against the Jags, but everybody is this season. JB, Roethlisberger's getting rid of the ball super quick, and whatever he is at this point in his career, his average time to throw, according to Next Gen Stats, it's 2.4 seconds. That's up from 2.3 last year. Both Roethlisberger last season finished lowest time to throw, so he's getting it out at an incredibly quick pace. They are trying to keep him from getting hit because he's got a body like a trash bag full of glass. But in that almost 29-0 comeback that they were able to lead last Thursday night against the Minnesota Vikings, he's definitely still able to threaten you.
Yeah, he's still, you know, he's the old gunslinger, and those old gunslingers always have a couple of left in the chambers. And you're right, you're not going to see him on a 5 to 7 step drop, you know, sitting back there, you know, burping the baby, patting the ball, waiting for a receiver to come open. That ball's coming out quick, and by design, like you said, they don't want him to get hit. But you saw the old Ben, the old, you know, never say die Ben, the old, you know, fight till the end Ben. in that comeback attempt against the Vikings a couple of weeks ago. But you are right. That ball is coming out quick, and they try to get it to Deontay Johnson and Claypool and even Najee Harris out of the backfield and let them kind of, make a play. A short passing game was almost like a long running game, if you will. So, yeah, you're right. Titans pass rush is going to be tested because, you're not going to have a lot of time to get to Ben to affect him because that ball is coming out. And you see on any given game, he's capable of putting up numbers and leading his team and getting down the field and scoring a lot of points. He certainly did that in the Minnesota game.
I don't know if you guys watched last night's Thursday Night Football, Chargers and Chiefs overtime win for the Chiefs. It was decided. It felt like it was decided by a decision Brandon Staley made on their first drive to go for it on fourth down, not take early points against Kansas City. And his argument being the math told me basically that was the move. That's how we're going to operate in those situations. And 3 points, field goals aren't going to help you win that game when literally field goals would have won you the game last night against the Chiefs. Vrabel, I know, was asked about that today, Glennon, by Tehran about, the aggressiveness, the mindset, and just what we've lumped all math and football into, which is the broad category of analytics. What did Vrabel say about it?
I think what he basically said was that, this kind of thing has actually been involved in the game a lot longer than, analytics has been talked about for the last half decade or so. It's just gone under, different names over the years, but people are certainly paying more attention to it now that we have the capability to do more research and figure out trends and patterns over the years. But, I give Vrabel credit in that regard. It's easy to look and listen to Mike Vrabel and say, here's about as old school a football guy as you can get, in terms of the personality, and the take and no guff and again, old school. But he is also a guy that has been very progressive, I feel like, in looking at the analytics and a guy who goes for it on fourth downs pretty regularly, takes chances that analytics generally favor. So, as much as I think we might stereotype Mike Vrabel as kind of the old school tough guy football coach, I think he is a pretty sharp and savvy guy who has taken advantage of all that he can in the analytics world as well.
Maybe he'll start answering your Zach Cunningham questions if you stop stereotyping him.
Well, I can count to 3 times that question was asked. I don't know if that's analytics or not, but he didn't go there on any of those 3.
Yeah, Zach Cunningham, who, along with Bud Dupree, who was designated to return, not yet as we sit here on Friday afternoon on the active roster. Zach Cunningham is, JB, and he is somebody who I don't think that it helps is not the right word because David Long has been really taken his game to a different level this season, but he hadn't played since Sunday Night Football against the Los Angeles Rams. This may be his 6th straight game that he misses. Zach Cunningham, the question around him was what would his role be? And when we asked Vrabel about it on Monday, it felt like they were having to justify it based on in terms of special teams if he can't operate the full defense, because you can't have the guy active on game day if he's only doing one thing in a certain circumstance.
Yeah, but I think the intangibles and the positives far outweigh the negatives when you bring in a guy like Zach Cunningham. We saw him at Vanderbilt. The guy's a tackling machine. He's a terrific athlete. A little bit better in space than, say, a Rashaan Evans. He's got that size, the length, that kind of thing. So, man, if he's able to go and contribute to this defense, he's going to be a huge help. And you're right. They're so banged up at inside linebacker with Monty Rice being down and David Long Jr. being down. The good news is Rashaan Evans and Jan Brown both had solid games last week against Jacksonville, but you can bring in somebody with Cunningham's ability and experience to help you, whether it is special teams or on defense, you'll take it every time.
Are we considering vaccination before we get to you, Glenn? But would we consider vaccination status an intangible or a tangible? Because David Culley put him out there in kind of a big way this week. JB, guess not. All right, very good.
I thought you were talking to John Glennon. My bad. Yeah. Vaccination.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened more because this is not the first podcast we've done with you two. I'm surprised that hasn't fallen flat between one John or another.
You said John, and so anyway, I thought you were talking about John Glennon. Anyway, I'm sorry. What was the question again, Buck?
The question was David Culley disclosed Zach Cunningham's vaccination status and his 3 different NFL games as we sit here between the Raiders and the Browns, the Washington football team in Philadelphia, and Seattle at Los Angeles. 3 games have been postponed so far in the NFL because of COVID outbreaks. They just dropped an unvaccinated linebacker into the middle of their meeting rooms at this point, according to David Culley, who disclosed Zach Cunningham's vaccination status. Are we considering vaccination status a tangible or an intangible right now?
I think it's a tangible. I think you have to consider all things at this point. And first of all, bad on David Culley for, revealing that information. That's a bad look for
terrible
a head coach in the National Football League. And, we all know David Culley to be a better dude than that. So I don't like hearing that, but yeah, with the way the COVID has been running rapid through not only the NFL, but all sports, I think you have to consider all options. I'd have to, if he's not vaccinated, I'd have to seriously consider keeping him home or not bringing him on the trip, because this is a critical time for the Tennessee Titans, man. They're in a battle for the 1 seed. It's pretty comfortable, obviously, the division lead, but, you never know. There's still a good amount of games left to where that could be a slip up. So, I think if you're a head coach, head coaches are paranoid and they're OCD and all that kind of stuff. I think all avenues have to be considered when you're evaluating who you want to dress on game day, for sure.
What you got, Johnny?
Yeah, I was first going to mention something on the Zach Cunningham and Rashaan Evans front. I found it interesting. Basically, they're the same type of player. I think, we know that, but, better against the run than they are against the pass. And, so at some point you're going to have to make that decision, whether Zach Cunningham is going to get me more of that playing time at that spot or Rashaan Evans. But I found it interesting when you look at maybe Rashaan Evans' 2 best games this year. The one I think was Kansas City probably, and that came just a few days after Avery Williamson had been signed. Then you go to last week where he had maybe the best game of his career, at least according to Pro Football Focus grade anyway. And that came just a couple of days after the team had signed Zach Cunningham. And if you're Mike Vrabel, don't you have to be thinking in your mind, all of a sudden it's a little bit more difficult, to sit Rashaan Evans down a few more snaps the way he played last week. So I think it's going to be interesting how they divide that time up, because again, both similar type of guys. Jayon Brown is clearly the guy that's going to be seeing more coverage and that type of thing. But it'd be very interesting to see how Rashaan Evans, coming off an excellent game, is played versus Zach Cunningham, who Mike Vrabel has a long relationship with and, has racked up more numbers certainly than Rashaan Evans has over the years.
Speaking of trends, I saw this from, I can't remember who it was exactly on Twitter, but the Chiefs just won their 7th straight game, and that's the exact same thing that happened after the Titans beat them in 2019, and it's the exact same thing that's happened after the Titans beat them in 2021. So all kinds of trends. And Rashaan Evans tends to have good games against the Chiefs, except that one in the AFC Championship game where he misses a tackle and that kind of breaks things open. But, small sample size. Everything else, I mean, Glennon, I think that the offense is, I don't know how much we want to grade them on a curve of, okay, they still don't have guys back, because the pass protection stinks. Saffold's not going to play in this game against Pittsburgh. Aaron Brewer apparently did something to his toe today and is questionable. Dylan Radins is a 2nd-round pick who's just chilling, is a healthy scratch under normal circumstances, but of course we'll have to at least dress for this game. They've got 0 intermediate passing game, and 3 points off 4 turnovers last week is atrocious, even if not all of them were short fields. Like the Christian Fulton interception was what amounts to a punt. You can look at it that way. So it's not all interceptions, not all points off turnovers or lack thereof created equal, but the offense it's tough to watch right now.
It really is. And, it's interesting too that, and I wrote about this today on SI.com, plug. But
all of the plugs.
the running game, for the Titans, I think as much as a lot of us kind of thought it would just drop off the face of the earth when Derrick Henry was gone, has kind of trended upwards here a little bit in the past 3 weeks. It's not Derrick Henry running game, certainly, but they've gone over 100, at least the last 3 weeks. They're getting good contributions from Foreman, from Hilliard. So the running game to me, and the run blocking, I should say as well, has really been solid to, above average, I'd say, since Derrick Henry went down. But yeah, the big question is, what's going on in pass protection? Ryan Tannehill is taking his lumps. He can't get rid of that ball quick enough. And yeah, as you said, Buck, they cannot get the ball downfield. Last game against Jacksonville, only 6 passes attempted of more than 10 yards. Only 2 of those were complete. And the more that happens, the more that box is just going to get stacked. And to me, really, I don't think that's going to change until we see AJ Brown come back. I'm not saying he's a Tyreek Hill by any stretch, but he's still a guy that can get downfield more often than any of the guys right now. If Julio Jones was 100%, I'd say it changes with him too, but I just don't think he's there yet. So I think it's going to be a tough sledding for this offense. We're going to have to see more of that old school Titans, the 13 play drives, which are nice in terms of, possession and so forth, but it's tough to put a bunch of those drives together because there's always opportunity for penalties, for turnovers, etc. So it's going to be a real challenge. I think as well as we saw the defense step up last week, the offense still to me is there's a lot of questions that were unanswered.
JB, Glennon brought up Pro Football Focus earlier, and they've got AJ Brown leading the team with 7 dropped on target passes. So even when he's been out there, he hasn't been terribly consistent. There have been some drops at different points in his career, but both wide receivers at this point, between AJ Brown, and I know injuries can't be held against him, but from our standpoint, from what this offense is supposed to be, is there one that's more disappointing than the other between Julio Jones and AJ Brown at this point?
Wow, it's kind of a photo finish right now, to be honest with you, because lack of availability, the drops that you mentioned. I mean, think about the excitement, guys, when that trade was made back in June to Julio Jones. Titans fans were posting pictures of Julio and AJ together, and this is going to be such an explosive offense with Derrick Henry in the backfield and all these types of things. And you're right. These guys haven't been available week to week, which has been a problem. It's affected the offense. And you're right. They've dropped a lot of catchable balls. And, AJ uncharacteristically has had his fair share of drops this year. Now, AJ revealed that he's got a lot going on outside of football, and we respect that. But the bottom line is, you're supposed to be one of the top young wide receivers in the NFL. And, this offense is predicated on big plays in the passing game when everybody's healthy and Derrick Henry's running the rock and Ryan Tannehill is able to work his magic on play action. So if I had to pick one, I guess me being an older guy, I'll give Julio Jones the benefit of the doubt, and I'd have to say AJ by a nose.
Yeah. JB or Johnny?
Yeah, I'd have to say it's been a little bit more disappointing to me in terms of Julio Jones, just because maybe this has started so much earlier in terms of the inconsistency and the injuries, and we just have never, maybe outside of that Seattle game, we haven't really seen Julio Jones anywhere near his best. At least AJ Brown, maybe we got a 3-week stretch or so where he was really, playing like we expect from AJ Brown. But, to kind of continue on the theme that you mentioned about how things have changed, not only Julio Jones, but, at the beginning of the year, we were thinking the big 3 wide receivers of AJ, Julio, and Josh Reynolds, and maybe throw in like a Marcus Johnson, as well. And so many things have changed. And of course, Derrick Henry as well. And it's stunning to me that, here we are and going into the 14th game of the season, and we're completely reversed of what we thought we were going to get from the Titans this year. We thought they were going to be scoring 30, 35 points a game, maybe giving up 25 or 30 points a game. And now we're seeing an offense that is, kind of back to that old school Titans offense. Hey, we're maybe going to get 20, 25 points max and hopefully you can hang on. Whereas the defense, has improved so much from last year. And right now is in my mind, really carrying this team.
No, they have. I think the defense has the opportunity to be special if Dupree and Cunningham, however they envision this, work out the way that they seem to think it will. But that's all the time that we got today. JB, say flight up to Pittsburgh. You can read Jon Glennon at si.com for all of him and David Beauclair's great work on the Titans. You can watch JB on News Channel 5. They've got the Sports Line show as well, News Channel 5 Plus, as well, the News Channel 5 network, and all kinds of great digital content where I have looked fat on one of Jon Burton's Facebook news, like Titans reports, and Johnny TV's Jon Glennon killed it. Coos really did. This is completely lacking context for the people who don't know who Coos is, the great cameraman from News Channel 5. But Coos really did me dirty on that upshot, Johnny. And I think that our height differential is a tough scene.
Oh yeah, we'll work on that, Buck. Don't worry.
I'm glad you saw that though, Buck, because I was just asking Johnny the other day. I said, my wife was asking me, she's like, I hear you do all these hits with Johnny after practice, and she always wants to take a look at them, and I'm always kind of puzzled. I'm like, I think it's maybe on Facebook or on on Channel 5 site, something like that. But
it's available on our NC5 Facebook page. I'll start posting them on Twitter so everybody can see.
No. This is
Jon Glennon.
Yeah, they don't need to see. And next time you want me to do that, I need to be wearing something better than a IU pullover. I look like a slob.
Hey, they had a big game that night. You were getting pumped up. They had a big game that night.
Yeah, they got their shit kicked in by St. John's, and now it's just an eternal suffering. I'm miserable. It's basketball season. No, this is
every now and then just say Academy Sports, and it's all good.
That's right.
It's just Glennon's way of getting us all to send him the link so he doesn't have to work on the internet to find anything. It's just
I'm down with that.
It's working. It's working well.
It's
all
simple
right,
for the old man.
get out of here. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.